Well, I'm a little rough around the edges, but I think I have a little bit more of an old school mentality.
Yeah, I think you're.
I don't like the idea of everybody getting trophies at the end of things.
No, you're tough. You're no nonsense. You're not a big. You're tough.
I'm an old soul, though.
You're an old soul, and I'm just finesse. I wouldn't have been a good hockey player. All right, he's one of the guys we lean on. All sorts of content. Lead content guy at Monday Morning Quarterback. Our friend at the Super Bowl via the Coward Global Satellite Network. Albert Breer joining us. It's interesting. We have an NBA story here that's been big, and we've seen the Patriots at this thing over and over. Kind of give me a 45-second kind of, how does it feel? You've been to a lot of these Super Bowls. Because of New England, does it feel like same old leading up to the game?
It doesn't feel like there's an overarching storyline, and we don't always have one. There's not a big injury we're worried about. I don't think Todd Gurley, there's much of a question he's going to play. The question is how the Rams are going to use him. Gronkowski's retirement, maybe you can get excited about that, or that can drum up some interest. And then, of course, there's the old coach versus the new coach, Belichick versus McVay. So you have your storylines. It just doesn't feel like there's one overarching thing that we're all kind of clinging on to.
Listen, Tom Brady said it the other day, Albert. You know the Patriots. You covered them for the Boston Globe, and one of the reasons we lean on you is you have more insight with them than anybody in this country, in my opinion. These are not linear. There have been years that New England felt like a Super Bowl team, and this year, I said it. I don't think they're a Super Bowl team. So I was surprised, jaw-droppingly, that they went to Kansas City and won and blew out the Chargers.
Yeah.
Have we underrated their personnel? Are you surprised they're here?
This is the 2001 Patriots, Colin. I mean, I really think it is. If you want to look at 14 and 16 and 17, when they got to this point, those teams did struggle in September and October, but by the time they got to November, they had their crap together. The difference here is that this team was really struggling in November and December. They lost to Pittsburgh. They lost to Miami. So I don't think we're underrating the Patriots' talent. I think we may be overlooking the way they're built, though, okay? The Patriots have never been built to be an all-star team. It's never been, let's just collect the best talent. They've always been built to combat whatever is in the league at that time. And I think that makes them a little unique. And I think you look at the roster right now, and you can absolutely see it. They've invested in the defensive backfield to do what? To deal with high-powered passing games. On offense, you know what? You're going to go out and you're going to put 245-pound defensive ends and 220-pound linebackers on the field to cover. We're going to put a fullback in the game. We're going to draft a 230-pound kid in Sony Michel in the first round, and we're going to put them behind a massive offensive line. And so I think the one thing that we overlook, we don't underrate the talent, the one thing that we overlook is the way that Bill and Nick Caserio build this team is not about collecting stars. It's about building a team to combat whatever's going on in the league at that given time.
People have made this into Belichick McVay. I think it's more Josh McDaniels against Wade Phillips. Bill has a history of beating guys, Rex Ryan, Mike Tomlin, who sort of do what they do, and everybody knows it. Mm-hmm. Wade is I do what I do, and you kind of know what I do. Historically, Belichick and McDaniels dice those guys up. I think Wade's a big storyline here. Your thoughts?
Yep. I'd have agreed with that 3, 4, 5 years ago. Something changed in Denver. When Wade Phillips got to Denver, the Broncos played the Patriots tougher than any Wade Phillips defense has played the Patriots before. 24, 16, 18 points the 3 times they played them. They won 2 of those 3 games. And so Wade figured something out. I think a piece of it, at least a piece of this, and I've talked to Wade about this in the past. Denver was the first time that he had a couple of blue-chip pass rushers and a couple of blue-chip cover guys. It's always been his ideal. In Denver, it was DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller up front, and then Aqib Talib and Chris Harris on the back end. And now he's got that again in Los Angeles with Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh up front and Marcus Peters and Talib on the back end. And so maybe this is just a matter of finally having the sorts of blue-chip players that he's always idealized in his defense. I'm just telling you, something changed when he got to Denver. He's played the Patriots a lot tougher than he did previous to that.
I want to go back to Gronk, and Joy and I were talking about this. I don't think he's a Patriot next year because I think I think it's time. I think they'll draft a tight end. It's a good class. They got 12 picks. I think they'll draft a quarterback. I think they'll get a tight end. I think Bill loves linebackers and defensive backs. They got a lot of draft picks. Let's talk about Gronk, who's really changed from the biggest offensive weapon to I think he's a really good blocking tight end, and he's got different value now. Do you think in a year he's a Patriot, or 5 months he's a Patriot?
No, I mean, I think he's likely to retire. And I think a big part of why he didn't retire last year, I think he realized when he got out there in the real world that there wasn't the sort of money or anything close to it to what he was making in football. And right now he's on the books for $10 million in cash next year, $12 million in the Patriots cap. I don't think there's any way he's back in that number. And if someone else is willing to pay him, I don't think it's going to be close to that. So that margin, what he can make in football versus what he can make doing something else has shrunk. I think this year was very, very difficult for him, a tough year. And look, this happens with a lot of superstar athletes. When they lose their superpowers, it's very hard for guys to reinvent themselves. In fact, most guys can't do it. You look at Des Bryant, how he struggled with it. I think the guy who's done it better than anybody over the years is Larry Fitzgerald, who went from being a dominant outside receiver to a very productive inside receiver. I respect what Gronk's done the last few weeks, right? And turning himself into a great blocker against the Chargers and then fighting his ass off against the Chiefs. He's in that process of reinventing himself. It's just the last couple of years, Colin, have been very, very difficult. And I think mentally he may have already started to detach himself from the game. And you heard it last night. He said he's going to give himself 2 weeks to think about it after the season ends. That tells me he's already sort of made up his mind. I think I want to retire, but I want to at least give myself a couple weeks out to make sure that I'm on 100% on it.
What do you make of the Rams? They're doing some talking at the Super Bowl. Wade Phillips is, he's joking around. They're very, very loose. It reminds me a little of the Philadelphia Eagles last year, where they came in sort of with an underdog spirit. Hey, we're facing a dynasty. We got big personalities. They kind of feel like the Eagles last year to me.
Yeah, and I know Sean McVay called a couple of coaches around the league who've been in this stage. Dan Quinn here in Atlanta was one, and spent an extended period of time talking to them about how to handle the Super Bowl. And I think it's like anything else for this group. That's the way that the Rams have sort of had their program run over the last couple of years. And the two programs are obviously very, very different. The key is that each coach is himself, right? Like the Bill you see up at the podium, the Bill you see who's hard on his players, that's who Bill Belichick is. That's how he was brought up. Sean McVay runs his program a different way. And I think that actually plays into handling a stage like this the right way. They don't have a ton of guys who've been here before, but they do have a few. And I think there's a general looseness to this team that helped them last week in New Orleans when they were down 13-0 in that environment. And I think it's going to help them again this week.
I kind of think Sean McVay's 5-1 in shootouts. I think the Rams are equipped. Yeah. They're equipped to be in shootouts. They're very comfortable in shootouts. And similarly, if you look at Tom Brady's last 3 years in the playoffs, they're averaging 34 points a game. I foresee a high-scoring game. And I think both teams are incredibly comfortable in that space. I think this year's Super Bowl is going to look a lot like last year's Super Bowl. Do you have a feeling talking to coaches and sources?
Yeah, and I'd agree with that. I think a lot of this comes down to offensive versatility, which is going to make it really hard on the defenses. And I talked to Matt Nagy, who played both these teams a couple days ago, and the thing that he said, because he's looked at both offenses, and he looks at both offenses every Monday morning to try to get ideas. He said the one thing that sticks out is that the Patriots can kind of toggle from being a 21 personnel team with a fullback in the game, power running team, to being a shotgun spread empty team like that, right? So they can do that to you. The Rams, meanwhile, are going to run a lot of things out of the same formation. They're going to make everything look the same, and so you're going to have to defend everything at once. And so both teams have a way of making it very, very difficult on a defense. I think that actually plays against the defenses in this game, because both those defenses are built to take certain things away from you, and both these teams can kind of toggle from one thing to the next. And so I'm with you. I think this is probably a high-scoring game. And remember, Colin, as high-scoring as last year was, last year's game came down to one defensive play. Who was going to make the one defensive play? Brandon Graham was the one who made that play for the Eagles last year. Does it come down to a Stephon Gilmore or an Aaron Donald making that play? We'll see.
Albert Breer, Monday morning quarterback, former Patriot beat writer. Good talking to you, bud.
You got it, Colin.
I always love, Joy, the ambient noise behind the guy we have with the microphone. You hear this.
The buzz.
You can hear the buzz. That's called the buzz. Next year, Fox has the Super Bowl.
Yes, in Miami.
In Miami, which is one of my favorite places in America. And you lived there for how many years?
Almost 10 years.
Okay, so next year is a pate, if I may.
It's gonna be interesting, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And the Pro Bowl might be there too. So
there you go. Coming up next, a hot Kyrie Irving rumor. I'm not making it up. Here we go with Kyrie Irving. That's coming up. Clean eating starts with the way food was supposed to be eaten. At Butcher Box, they do it right. Organic, free range, from the earth, and delicious. Butcher Box is delivered right to your door. Their meat's guaranteed. No antibiotics, nor hormones ever. Butcher Box beef, grass-fed, grass-finished. Chicken's organic, free range. Heritage bred pork, raised to keep all the fat and flavor. Now they have sockeye salmon, sourced pure and sustainably harvested in Bristol Bay, Alaska. Cut to quality, comes at a competitive price. With free shipping, you get a month's worth of meat from Butcher Box, less than $6 a meal. And your subscription's easy to maintain. Skip a box, pause, cancel a subscription anytime, no stress, no hassle. All right, right now, Butcher Box offering my listeners 2 free cuts of filet mignon. Most tender premium cut of beef from Butcher Box. Free bacon, $20 off your first box. All you got to do is sign up. ButcherBox.com/herd. ButcherBox.com/HERD. That's a $50 value all in your first box.